DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one framework, one philosophy. We've created a brand, streamlined our entire process. We have codified our whole system. We have this daily masterclass here that you are listening to. We have an open enrollment university where you can get all of our courses, all of my best material, all packaged up and bundled into one process that you can follow. And this all comes under the umbrella of one phrase. Let's all say it together. It is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, we are going into volume 2 of 7. Yes, you heard me, 7. I am answering the questions. This is basically an open Q&A with the entrepreneurship class from Prairie High School. So shout out to them for providing the great questions. There's some kind of noise going on in here. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that was. Sounded like a raccoon was breaking into the walls. But anyway, all that being said, Nico, you can edit that part out. But let's get right into it. Volume 2, let's get into question number 8. Question number 8 is, where did you go, Dre, after playing professionally, and why? Well, after playing professionally, the last place I was in Bratislava, Slovakia. It was the last place that I played. And from there, where did I go? I went to the airport. And I got on a plane. I came back to the United States. I was already living in Miami at this point, and that's when I said, all right, it's time for me I'm going to fully transition into doing this business thing, into the professional speaking world. I was already creating and selling my own products. I didn't mention that in the first episode. I don't think any questions really touched on that. But I started creating and selling my own products to basketball players in 2009. That's something that I hadn't mentioned. So that's how I actually started in entrepreneurship, was I was selling my own products back then. I'd done some training, a little bit of training here and there before that, but then I started selling my own products in 2009. And at the same time, that's the same time that I started making money from YouTube videos, like the ad revenue and whatever you get from YouTube. But I was never that excited about making money from YouTube ad revenue, simply because I knew that YouTube was only giving you 55% of the money. And to this day, that's what it is. When you get a check from YouTube AdSense, which is the ad revenue that you get from the videos that you publish, no matter how much money that is, it's only 55% of the money. The other 45% goes straight into YouTube's pocket. Now, you might say, well, listen, if 55% of the money is $1 million, right? Would you be mad at $1 million? I wouldn't be mad at it, but at the same time, I'm thinking that other 45%, I didn't even get to negotiate that. YouTube doesn't say, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? It's not a negotiation. They basically tell you how much they're going to take and how much you're going to get, and it's basically a take it or leave it deal. And the reason that I didn't like that is because if they can give you a take it or leave it deal at the beginning, then what can they do later on? Like, they could easily shut you down. They could kick you off. They can shut down your channel. They can demonetize your content anytime that they feel like it. And any of you who follows people who talk about this kind of stuff with social media, you see that this happens to people all the time. You get your account shut down. You're some policy violation that they don't explain to you. You can't reach out to anybody. They demonetize your content, and that might be your whole business, and it's all gone that quick. I've known people who this has happened to. I had a friend, I can't remember who it was who just told me, but they had a friend who had an Instagram, like 100,000 people, and they were making all their money off Instagram, and then their Instagram account got shut down. And this person was crying. This is a grown woman in tears because now she lost all her revenue overnight because her account got shut down because she built her whole business on a platform which she did not own. So I was never excited about making money off of YouTube ads, even though I was still pocketing that check. But I wasn't excited about it. I always wanted something that I could own. I always just inherently understood that I wanted ownership. I did not want quote unquote partnership. You're not a partner with Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. All right, they own it and you work there. So for me, as far as entrepreneurship, where did I go? I went straight into figuring out how can I create something that I own and that I control, that I also can control, that I can sell, that is worth value. It has to be worth something that people are going to be willing to pay for. So that's what I did after playing professionally. But again, as I said in the previous episode, I already was on the path of doing this even before basketball was over, because I started this way before it was a thing. Point number 9, question number 9, I'm answering questions from the Prairie High School entrepreneurship class. Number 9, what advice do you have for us high school students in trying to start up a business with a new product? And I liked this question. I remember answering this when I was on a live Zoom call with the class. The number one piece of advice I would give you is do not believe that don't try to be Steve Jobs. That's what I would tell you to do. Now, what exactly does that mean? Now, Steve Jobs is the one who created the iPhone. I think everybody pretty much knows that. And here's the thing about Steve Jobs. When someone asked Steve Jobs about doing market research and talking to customers and asking them what they wanted before he created the iPhone, Steve Jobs, he bristled at the suggestion. And Steve Jobs was famous for saying that the customer is stupid. The customer is an idiot. You don't ask the customer what they want. Because if you ask the customer what they want, they're going to give you some idiotic, marginal improvement over what already exists. And this is also a man by the name of Henry Ford, who brought the Model T car to the United States, or created the Model T, one of the first American automobile manufacturers. He said, if I would have asked the customer what they wanted, they would have told me they wanted a faster horse. Because back then, people used to ride horse and buggies to get around. But he didn't listen to the customer, or didn't consider to poll the audience before he created that car. Steve Jobs the same way. He created the iPhone because it was a vision that he had in his mind. And he knew that if he tried to explain that to the customer before it existed, they wouldn't have got it. So when he revealed the iPhone, it was revolutionary. And I already told you, to this day, Apple makes the majority of their money from that phone. All the products that Apple has created over the years, all those employees, all those stores, all those advertisements, they make the majority of their money from one product, that iPhone. Why? Because they had a revolutionary CEO, the revolutionary person at the top who came up with that idea in his own mind. All right, he dreamed up the iPhone, then he made it real. And what I'm telling you is this. Now, I can't speak for you, but I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm not as smart as Steve Jobs. All right? I'm not a genius like Steve Jobs was. I'm a little bit dumber than him, so I gotta work a little bit harder. So when I create products, you know what I do? I talk to the customer. I talk to the audience and find out, what are your challenges? What are your needs? What are the frustrations you're dealing with right now? What are your fears right now? What is something that would help you right now? What would it look like? What would it feel like? Then I take all of that feedback. Then I go create something because I know this is what the audience wants. Now, again, if you're a genius like Steve Jobs and you don't need to talk to your consumers first, and you could just make something out of nothing and the audience is going to love it and it's going to blow up like the iPhone, hey, more power to you. Very soon you will have your own podcast, all right? And I will listen to yours. But until then, unless you are a genius like Steve Jobs, I would suggest that you talk to your prospects. Find out what they need so that you know when you create a product, you are actually fulfilling a need, not just throwing something out there that is not solving a challenge for another person. And here's a good starting point for this. If you're like, man, I create anything. I mean, the whole world is out there, Dre. How do I even begin? Where do I start? Here's where you begin. You be customer zero for your own product. You be the number one prospect. You be the market research. I'll give you an example. The first product that I created of my own that I sold was called Hoop Handbook. Hoop like basketball, Hoop Handbook. And it was basketball training programs that I made for basketball players. Why did I make that product? It is because, first of all, when I was on YouTube, players would always ask me to make them a workout program, and I would say no because there was too many people asking. And how am I going to take time to make a workout program for a player that I don't even know? One day, some player had this great idea in the comment section. He said, Dre, why don't you just take what you do and just put it on a document so somebody else can follow it, and then everybody else can just work out the way that you do. We already watch your videos. I said, that's a good idea. If I did that, I would charge for it. Would you pay for it? And the audience said, overwhelmingly, they said, yes, as long as it doesn't cost too much. So I realized who my audience was. I realized my audience was 13 to 21-year-old basketball players who were learning to play basketball. They didn't have a ton of money, but they had a little bit of disposable income. Again, I'm just thinking, who was I when I was 14, 15, 16 years old? I was just like them. I wanted to learn how to play basketball. I didn't have anyone teaching me. I had a little bit of disposable income, but not too much. Now, I was older than them, so by the time I was being asked these questions, people had access to the internet, and most people had debit cards or credit cards and PayPal accounts, whereas back in the 90s, we didn't have these things. But I knew I was solving the same problem that I had when I was 14, 15 years old in 2009 when I was 26, 27 years old. These are players who just want to learn how to play basketball. They just need someone to show them, here's a basic series of drills you can do to get better at dribbling. Here's how you can get better at shooting. Here's how you can work on your footwork. Here's some post moves. Here's how to learn how to dunk. Here's how to jump higher. Here's how to condition yourself for basketball. Here's how to do a move into a jump shot. Here's how to do crossovers. I knew how to teach all those things. All I needed to do was learn to codify the process. I talked about this in episode 1101, codification, which is the key to taking your knowledge out of your head and putting it, quote unquote, on paper so other people can learn from it. A book, a course, a speech, all of those are codified processes. It's knowledge codified. So I knew how to do that even before I could explain it to other people. So I started codifying my knowledge, making my own basketball training programs, and I started selling them things. I started selling them at $4.99 a piece. And within the first 3-4 years of us selling that product, we sold tens of thousands of those programs simply because I had an audience. I knew exactly who I was selling to. And listen, they were asking for the product before I was even making it. I was customer zero for Hoop Handbook. So I knew exactly what I was giving to that audience, and what I would advise any person, high school student or whoever who's trying to start up a business, find out who your audience is. Identify an audience first, talk to them, find out what their needs and wants are. Then once you have their needs and wants, now you have a really good compass for what you need to create. Question number 10. I'm answering questions from the entrepreneurship class at Prairie High. Number 10, after failing at first, Dre, how were you able to change your mindset and completely change your career around for the better? Wow, that's a great question. Well, the answer to that is the whole last 20 years. But after failing at first, man, well, I didn't fail at first. I failed at first, I failed at third, I failed at 7th, 9th, 12th, 15th, 21st. I failed a whole lot of times, depending on how you define failure. Not making my high school team 3 years in a row, not making a lot of local recreational league teams, only sitting on the bench the year that I was on the high school team. You could pretty much, depending on how you look at it, you call that a failure too. Not getting a college scholarship, another failure. Getting kicked out of my college basketball program as a junior, another failure. Not playing as a senior, another failure. Not having any prospects to play pro upon graduation from college, another failure. Many times, even once I became pro, there were times where I did not have my next contract lined up and I didn't know when or if I would get another contract. Those are more failure. So there are many times that, again, depending on how you define the word, many times that I had failure. So it wasn't just I failed one time and then everything just went perfect after that. Absolutely not. The way I was able to change my mindset was the failures were part of it. So what I want people to understand is that just because you fail or you come up short of something doesn't mean there's something wrong with your mindset. Maybe it means you need to double down on that mindset, whatever that mindset was. If you're showing up every day doing the work and you still fail and you still don't make the team and you still get cut, that doesn't mean you should stop showing up every day. Maybe it means you need to show up twice a day. Maybe it means you just need to keep showing up and you need to put more time in so you can get that result. We have a masterclass talking about that exact point, that sometimes in life you just need to put more time into what you're doing. And I talk about that in episode 741, how to make more time for yourself, how to make more time for sleep, episode 635. Sometimes you just need to put more time in. Sometimes it's just the process. When I got cut from my high school team all those years, I didn't really change my approach the next year. The only thing that changed was just I got better. The accumulation of the work that I was doing eventually created that separation day, which I talk about when I talk about discipline. The separation day is the little bit of separation that you create between you and the person who doesn't do the work on the days that you do the work. So after failing that first time and every other time, I did not necessarily change my mindset. What I changed was maybe a little bit of my approach, tweaking it, but I maintained that mindset. I knew I needed to be disciplined. I had to build up my confidence, and confidence comes from discipline. The more disciplined you are, the more confident you afford yourself to be. The mental toughness got built through the failures. Understand that you don't build mental toughness by succeeding in everything. All right, nobody becomes mentally tough because everything they do works. All right, I talked about how to develop mental toughness in episode number 941, and I also talked about it again in episode 1386, how to develop and maintain mental toughness. You don't develop mental toughness when everything's working. You develop mental toughness when things are not working. So those failures are what built my mental toughness. The way that I'm able to talk about these things now, and the way that I'm able to help somebody who is in a failing situation right now, or they feel like they're failing, or they don't feel activated right now, they don't feel in touch with themselves, they don't feel like anything is working even though they're doing all the work. Those are the people who seek me out. The reason they seek me out is because I've been there and I understand that that's when the mental toughness gets built. It's not because everything is succeeding. You can't build mental toughness if everything works. All right, why do you need to be tough? Everything's just working. All right, there's no problems. So I didn't completely change my mindset, but my career didn't completely change either. What changed is that I just kept showing up. And a lot of times in life, if you just keep showing up, you create opportunities that other people miss out on simply because they're not in the room. They didn't put themselves out there the 9th time after putting themselves out there 8 times it didn't work. They didn't show up for time number 9 or number 10 or number 27 or number 44. I wrote an article in late 2020. I wrote this article. It's on dreallday.com. You can find this. And just go to dreallday.com and type in the phrase Sunny Hill, SONNY, Sunny as a name, Hill, HILL, Sunny Hill. And the Sunny Hill is a basketball league in Philadelphia. Anybody from Philly in the basketball world knows about Sunny Hill. Kobe played in Sunny Hill, Wilt Chamberlain, Tim Thomas, Rip Hamilton, Jameer Nelson, DeJuan Wagner. Anyone from the area who's really good at basketball plays in the Sunny Hill League. I went and tried out for a team in the Sunny Hill League when I was in 12th grade in high school. It was after basketball season was over. School season was over, but I went for the team in the summertime. And this team had all the best players in the city on it. And I was the only nobody guy who showed up to the tryout. All the other guys, it wasn't even a tryout, honestly. They didn't even treat it like a tryout because everybody who was in the gym besides me, these are the kind of dudes who don't go to tryouts. All right, they get called by the coaches and say, yo, come be on my team. They don't even look at basketball as a tryout because they already know they were going to be on the team. These are all guys with D1 scholarships. I was the only dude in there who was a quote unquote nobody. So they didn't even look at it. They didn't even bother to try cutting me because they're like, all right, there's only one guy. We can keep him on the club. And for the most part, I sat on the bench, but I found myself holding my own with those guys. I started to earn some respect from those individuals just because of the fact that I was willing to show up. So one of the main things that created opportunities for me, and I think I've gone over this so many times already, and we're not even halfway through these questions, is that I showed up. I just showed up where there was opportunity. And because I kept showing up and was willing to show up when other people quit or other people didn't even bother because they didn't think they had a chance, those were when the opportunities popped off. Question number 11. And I'm answering questions from the entrepreneurship class at Prairie High. Number 11, what do you think was the most important step in marketing yourself and your brand? Wow, this is a great question. The most important step in marketing myself and my brand, two things. Number one, I created a philosophy that is easy to remember. It's easy to burn on somebody's brain. And I assumed complete ownership of that philosophy. And everybody knows the name of that philosophy, right? It's called work on your game. And if you Google work on your game, you're going to see me. If you Google me, you're going to see work on your game. If you ever meet me in person, you're going to see work on your game. You're watching this on video right now. You see work on your game on my arm. You see work on your game on my hat. It's kind of cool outside tonight. I'm about to go to dinner. You're going to see work on your game on my hoodie. Now, I would wrap my car with work on your game, but that'd be a little bit too much. So now I ain't doing that. But you get the point. I own the phrase work on your game. I own the trademark. I wrote the book on it. I got the website. I own work on your game. And it's easy to understand. If somebody hears that phrase, they don't even have to know who I am. I don't have to explain it. As soon as they hear it, they're like, oh, work on your game. You know what? That's right. A lot of times I'll be outside in Miami and somebody will walk by and I'll see them looking at me. And it looks like they're looking at me, but they're really looking at my hat. And they'll read it and it's like, you know what? Yeah, work on your game. That happens like once a week. Somebody will see it and they're like, yeah, work on your game. I like that. And they don't even know who I am. So one of the things that helped market my brand was that I created a brand that's pretty self-explanatory without you even knowing who the hell I am. And I made sure that I owned it. So it's kind of two things. And the other thing to help market myself and my brand is that my brand is based on me and my personality on this microphone and my personality on camera and my personality in my writing and my personality in person is all the same person. So any of you who has ever met me in person or ever been coached by me one-on-one, or you've been on any of the calls in the university, or you have ever heard me on somebody else's show, or you've been on a Zoom call with me, or again, maybe you've read my books, or anything that I've written, whether it's Twitter 280 characters, an Instagram caption, a video, a live stream, a clubhouse room, this podcast, anywhere that I'm at, the personality does not change. If you heard me give a speech, the personality does not change. I'm the same individual no matter where, online, offline. It doesn't change at all. Now, I'm not telling you that you actually need to be like that, because some people have different personalities. They have different ways they approach. Beyonce, for example, has an alter ego called Sasha Fierce that she calls herself when she steps on stage. And then when she gets off stage, she has a completely different personality. And she even talked about this in one of her documentaries back in the day. And I mentioned it in my book, Work on Your Game. So that works for her. For me, it's the same person no matter what. That works for me. So listen, you could be Dre Baldwin, you could be Beyonce, you can choose. But you just got to figure out what works for you. So what helped me with my marketing and with my brand is that I am this brand. I represent this brand. I live this. This is not work for me. It is work, but it's not. This is just the way that I live in general. So those have been the three biggest things that have helped me establish my brand. Question number 12. What is an essential item that you have that keeps you organized or on track? All right, this is a good question, a practical question right here. What is an essential item that keeps me organized or on track? I would have to cheat, and I'll give you more than one. One would be Google Docs. I use Google Docs to keep track of, if any of you wonder, I'm gonna let the cat out the bag. Any of you wonder how I'm able to recite different numbers of episodes of this show? It is not because I had them downloaded all into my brain. If I was able to do that, then I don't know, I might be in Vegas, winning hands of blackjack or something if I could memorize that well. 1,700 episode titles and the exact number of each, no. I keep them in Google Docs so I know what every episode is. I have a master list of every episode I've ever made of this show written down so I can find it and I can refer you to them at any given time. So Google Docs is one. That's where I write all my books as well. Another one would be Slack. Slack is a communication channel. That's where I communicate with my team. That's where I communicate with Nico, who does the audio editing for this show, damn near since the inception of Work on Your Game. That's where I communicate with Rim, who's my executive assistant. And that's where we do most of our communications with them and anyone else who happens to be involved or freelancers that I'm working with. Another one is Airtable. Airtable is basically I don't even know how to explain it. Airtable is like a project management software. Some of you might use Trello. Trello, Airtable, they don't look the same, don't work exactly the same, but they have the same function, which is managing projects. So we use Airtable to manage our projects. So in other words, we know every single project that we're going to be doing in 2021. We already have it written down. We already planned it out. We have it broken down by the whole year. We have it broken down by a quarter. So that means the first quarter, second quarter, third, and fourth. We have them broken down by month. We have them broken down to the week. And then to the day. Every single day, Rem and I get on a call and we talk about what happened the previous day and what we happen to be working on the next day. We hold each other accountable. We make sure we are all on the same page, make sure everything's in the calendar the way it's supposed to be, make sure the T's are dotted, the I's are crossed. And see, I just got it backwards. See, that's why I got an executive assistant. Make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Make sure everything is in the calendar where it's supposed to be. If I have a live call, make sure that the Zoom link is in there. If there's a password, make sure we had a password. If I'm appearing on somebody else's show, have they given us the links to where we need to go and how to get in? All of those things, our follow-up processes, the way that we reach out to people, the emails that we send out, all of those things we have processes for. So the answer to your question is I can't give you one item. There isn't any one item. Is the fact that I understand the value of having structure and routine, process, structure, and routine in our business. That's the essential item. So I kind of cheated on that question, but I had to. Question number 13. Answering questions from the Entrepreneurship class at Prairie High School. Dre, what has been your favorite project to work on? Ooh, I love this question. My favorite project to work on. That's a really good question because I have enjoyed so many things that I did. Let me just list you all the things that I've enjoyed and I'll tell you why. And this is just, I'm answering these questions off the top of my head. The first one was when I first started on YouTube and I saw that people were responding. I had to have the insight to see that there was an opportunity there. Nobody told me, nobody wrote a blog post in 2005 and said, hey, you should start publishing content to the internet every single day because one day this is going to be a thing and there's going to be money to be made from it and they'll call you an influencer and you'll have instant credibility because of it. Nobody said that. Nobody told me. I just had to have the insight to do it. And the fact that I have touched so many athletes, and it started with athletes and now it's people who are not athletes. Just from the fact that I've been willing to put myself out there it means a lot because these days, as I told you in I believe this previous episode, I talked about this all the time. I'm hearing from people who followed me 10 years ago and they were in a completely different life than they are now. And the messages that I gave them then still resonate to this day. And a lot of them are still following me now. And there are people who just heard me last week who are listening to this right now. So just the fact that me being willing to put myself out there and really share my message and that it's connected with people, that means a lot. And there are so many people out there who are afraid of putting themselves out there because they're afraid of what people might think of them, or they think it's dumb, or they think nobody's going to listen. Well, if you don't start, then you can't finish. And so that has been the biggest thing for me when it came to YouTube. That's one thing. The next thing is when I created my first product. I called it Hoop Handbook, as I told you about, and people bought it. I remember the first day I announced it on YouTube, and that night I got an email came through my BlackBerry phone. And those of you who are in high school probably don't remember BlackBerry phones, but those of you who are older, you remember the Blackberries. They were the thing before iPhones. BlackBerry was the phone. And my BlackBerry, that little red light started blinking, and I saw that I made a sale. And it was only $4.99. PayPal took their little cut, so it was probably like $4.50. And I said to myself, I just created a product out of nothing. It was out of absolutely nothing. I created this product from scratch. I put it on the internet for free. I offered it to the world for free, and I just turned it into $4.99. And I said to myself, I could do this 1,000,000 times over, and I could do this for the rest of my life. And that was a pivotal moment in my life. It was an inflection point because it told me that I didn't need to do the traditional thing to make money and have a business, and I could really make something out of what I was doing. It's one thing to make YouTube videos and have people tell you that your videos are great. That's cool, but I didn't own anything, and I wasn't, I was making money off the ads, but it wasn't direct. But when I sold that first product for $4.99, I said I could do this for the rest of my life. So that was another project that was great. Another project that was great to work on was the Summer is Serious event, because I didn't even know the extent of my reach. This is 2013, so I've been making videos for 8 years at this point. But this is very, very early days of influencers. And I didn't know the extent of my reach until that Summer is Serious event. And there was a lot of guys that you all might know of to this day who were there. Kick Genius was there. That's Trey Good and Jay Jones. Shout out to those guys, great guys. Who else was there? What was the guy's name? King Handles from Canada. He was there. I forget his name. Joey Haywood. He was there. There was a few other cats who were in the kind of influencer space. But those are guys that I remember because they were kind of out there at that point as well. But we were in New York City. We're riding around New York in this big bus, Brooklyn, New York, and people that I didn't even think would know who I was were seeing me. There's like these 5'7" Asian guys. We're in the middle of a Nike store, and it's like, Dre, y'all be watching your videos for years, and kids at the playgrounds, and just random people that I would have no idea would know who I am. I'm in Miami in this empty gym making videos. We're in New York City, we're in Brooklyn, we're in Manhattan, and random people are stopping us in the streets like, yo, I watch your videos, and kids are like, yo, I got your videos on my phone, and they're showing me. And that showed me the extent and the power of having reach online, that you're reaching everybody in the world and you don't even know how many people that you're reaching. So going to that Summer is Serious event, and they didn't pay us for that event. They paid for everything. They didn't pay us, but they did give us they gave us a good couple $1,000s worth of free gear. So shout out to Nike for that. I still got a lot of that gear to this day. But and that event, and Kevin Durant was there, James Harden was there at the Summer is Serious event in New York. I didn't even mention them. Sir Isaac, who's a dunker from Houston, he was there, and he knew a couple guys that I used to know from a traveling team that I used to play on. So again, the connections that get made, man, that event was so big because it just showed me just the width and the breadth of the reach that you have when you're on the internet. You don't know how many people are actually paying attention to you when you're online. You think you know because you're looking at the stats, but looking at a number on a computer is way different from walking down the street somewhere in a city that you aren't from and you don't be in that much, and some random person just stops you because they recognize your face and say, yo, I watch you every day. And it sounds cool to hear me say it, but it's completely different when somebody's standing in your face and telling you, and they're excited just to see you, like, yo, I watch your videos, or yo, the stuff you say has really helped me. And that was really big for me. It really let me know, like, yo, this internet thing is real. This influencer, we weren't even calling them influencers then. This thing, whatever we were calling it then, it is a real thing. So that was a big project for me to just do that Summer is Serious event. The next thing that I would say is working on my book, Work on Your Game. Even though I've written 27 books, the book Work on Your Game was pivotal to me because, number one, it was a deal that I did with a traditional publisher. Of my 27 books, that's the only one I did through a traditional publishing company. And that's a big deal because even though we have self-publishing is ubiquitous these days, anybody can write a book and publish it and have it on Amazon tomorrow morning, literally. It was a big deal because it's still, people understand that not everybody gets an opportunity to publish a book with a traditional publisher. So when I was able to do that, they came to me, I didn't pitch myself to them. They came to me and offered me that deal, and I happened to have the idea already in my head. I knew I wanted to make this book a magnum opus where I took this whole philosophy, all this stuff that I talk about, and put it in one book. Because all my other books, I basically take subsections, sub-frameworks of the Work on Your Game philosophy, make books about it. I got a book on confidence, a book on discipline, a book on mental toughness, a book on initiative, a book on conversations, a book on the subconscious mind, a book on, I don't even remember. I got so many books, I don't even remember what they're all about. But the thing is, they're all sub-frameworks. I wanted to make one book that took the whole thing and put it in one place. I wanted to make sure that book was perfect. And Work on Your Game is that perfect book. And by the way, you can get that at workonyourgamebook.com. If you want, the $1,400 in free digital bonuses will give you immediately. The book is also on Amazon, but you don't get the bonuses on Amazon. If you want the bonuses, go to workonyourgamebook.com. You get the hardcover book and you get all the bonuses. So Work on Your Game, the book, will be the next project that has been great to work on. And the last one, I'm gonna say this show right here. And I've had many people in my audience, people who've been watching me since the YouTube basketball days, say, Dre, I've been following you since I was trying to hoop and play in the league, and your podcast is the best work you've done. It's better than your articles, it's better than your books, it's better than your YouTube videos, this podcast. So I love doing this podcast, and I even said, it wasn't a couple weeks ago, I had an episode where I said, if I had to cut everything out, an episode on sacred cows, I believe it was 1698, episode number, episode 1699, where I talked about sacrificing your sacred cows. If I had to cut out every way that I publish and get my name out there on the internet, I'm talking all the social media platforms, and I can only pick one platform to publish on, and that's the only one I can do. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of those together. I can only pick one. It would be this show right here. It'd be this podcast. That'd be the one thing that I do. Even though I would hate to give up writing, I would hate to give up posting pictures of myself, I would do it, and I would focus on this podcast right here. And this has been my favorite platform, is doing this show. So those are the projects that have been my favorite. Question number 14, and this is the last one for today. And these are questions from the Prairie High School entrepreneurship class. Dre, do you actually wake up at 3:45 a.m. with no alarm clock? The answer is yes. All right, that's the easiest question of the day. So that is it for volume 2. Tomorrow we'll be going into volume 3 of the questions from the Prairie High School entrepreneurship class. Questions are great so far. Would you agree? So tomorrow we'll be getting into that. Let me just say this. If you haven't yet claimed your free copy of my book, The Mirror of Motivation, I would suggest you do that before we run out of trees to print them things on. So go to mirrorofmotivation.com. That's mirrorofmotivation.com. I have already paid for the book. All you're going to do is cover the shipping. I will ship it to you wherever you are. Again, mirrorofmotivation.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.